I'm really looking forward to this game this weekend. I'm really looking forward to the start of the Rugby Championship generally. But the Springboks against the Wallabies, this game just fascinates me. I think partly because we've already seen the Wallabies this year in 3 test matches. Then what are the Springboks going to look like defending their crown? Their team news was named on Monday. Ridiculously strong team as usual. And the Wallabies have named their team today. So an Australia focus in this video, going through their team news and looking ahead to the game. I might save my full preview for tomorrow. But yeah, let me know in this video, what do you make of this Australia team? Is it good enough to beat the Springboks in South Africa? And what do you make of the headlines? Let me know in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel. But the big headline from this team selection is he's back. James O'Connor starts at fly half for Australia. It's a great story. He's had one hell of a career, hasn't he, James O'Connor? If you think back 12 years, he's starting against the Lions in a test series. He didn't feature against them in 2025, but was a part of the squad. He's been playing for the Crusaders and winning a Super Rugby title. And now he's come back in for the Wallabies. In a way, it is a massive reflection, I think, of the troubles they've had at fly half, particularly this year. I mean, the troubles for the Wallabies at fly half probably span the last decade and a half, but particularly this year with Lola Sio getting injured, Tom Liner then getting that HIA at the end of the Lions series in the 3rd test, means O'Connor, who wasn't originally part of the training squad for the Wallabies when they first met up earlier on this year, is now starting at the beginning of the Rugby Championship. He's had a brilliant career. What does he bring to this team? Ultimately, it has to be experience here, right? And it does seem a little strange that we didn't see him at all against the Lions and then he ends up playing here. I think obviously it's partly down to injuries, partly circumstances. But I think here they clearly want experience. We all know the challenge of facing the Springboks, frankly, wherever you're facing them. Playing them at Ellis Park is one of the great challenges at the moment in the sport, isn't it? So I think they want experience in their halfback partnership. Particularly when you consider that he's partnered with Nick White, who has had the shortest international retirement of all time, which we knew might be the case at the end of the Lions tour anyway, when he said he had been retired and Jake Gordon picking up his injury. So Nick White starts, but those guys are veterans. You're 9 and 10, you've got bags of experience. At least that is something. I wonder now, you look back on it now, don't you? And first test of that Lions series, Tom Liner at 10. I know James O'Connor hadn't massively been a part of the squad up to that point. But you feel like the experience that these guys have now could have been something they could have done with then. Anyway, that's by the by, it's in the rearview mirror, isn't it? But experience is going to be key, and I think that's a major reason why Joe Schmidt has gone with James O'Connor and Nick White, as well as obviously being injury enforced as well. But it's not going to hurt when you're coming up against the Boks. The other thing, that if we're talking about fly half, 6-2 bench split, which is pretty fascinating because Tate McDermott and Andrew Kellaway are the replacements. So what happens if you get a fly half injury? What happens if you get a centre injury as well? I mean, we saw them again, to reference back to the Lions series. Tate McDermott played the 2nd test on the wing. So you can kind of move pieces of the puzzle around and try and make it work. But there's always a risk with the 6-2, but that is clearly an issue here for Australia, potentially. But you go 6-2, it's always part of the risk. And I think ultimately, with a 6-2 bench split against South Africa, they need the power, don't they? Australia at their best and with their frontline players do have plenty of power and punch in the team. I'll run through it in just a moment, but Taniela Tupou, Will Skelton, Harry Wilson at 8, no Valentini again, but Gleeson coming off the bench. They do have power. The question is whether they can sustain it for a full game. That 2nd test against the Lions, a great example. Brilliant for 50 minutes, and then they faded. So going 6-2, yes, it leaves you short in some positions on the bench, but you just feel like they are going to need that firepower and punch coming up against South Africa. So the team itself, it's been up on the screen already, but Slipper, Pollard and Tupou, they've got challenges and injuries, haven't they? They've had that this year, really, in terms of Alan Alatoa is now out. Pollard is back in. Nick Frost, Will Skelton in the 2nd row. Will Skelton is just so key. If Will Skelton's on form, if Will Skelton is near his best, he is a handful for absolutely anyone. And also, I think quite importantly here for Skelton, he is the sort of player that needs game time. Wasn't ready for the start of the Lions series, became more and more instrumental as the series went on in tests 2 and 3. Because of that, how much of a better place is he in for the Rugby Championship? Are they going to be able to get closer to a full 80 minutes out of Will Skelton? I'd imagine we're going to try and see them do that because he is just so key for them. Tom Hooper, I really like as a 6. I thought he was excellent in the 3rd test. Fraser McRae, excellent open side. And Harry Wilson as your back row. Very, very good players. Are they going to be a strong enough, beefy enough, angry enough, aggressive enough pack to beat the Springboks? We'll wait and see. Plenty of talent there, but it's a pretty tough task. I've spoken about the halfbacks already. Len Ikitau and Joseph Akwoso Sualihi, the centre pairing once again. I mean, they've got bags of talent in this backline, don't they? And when you see them click, they are so, what's the word I'm looking for? Explosive, and they just ask so many questions of teams. So let's see how the centres go. They're clearly, I think, those are the centres that they really want to stick with building up to the World Cup, it seems to me. Ikitau is ideally a 13, but they're making way for Sualihi, who's such a talented athlete. And then Peach on the wing, Jorgensen on the other wing, who was excellent against the Lions, and Tom Wright, who is one of the best fullbacks, I think, in the world. Paenga Ramosa, Angus Bell and Nongor as the replacement front row, as you would probably expect. Jeremy Williams and Langy Gleeson. Really like Langy Gleeson. Love what he brings off the bench. And Nick Champion de Crepney, who made his Wallabies debut in the 1st test against the Lions. They're the 6 forwards on the bench. Tate McDermott, Andrew Kellaway, as I've spoken about already. I love Tate McDermott. He's such a good player, isn't he? You feel at the moment he's almost unlucky because he brings such zip and pace and skill and quality coming off the bench, but he's been having to come off the bench because they wanted Jake Gordon or now Nick White to start. And Nick White was excellent in that 3rd test against the Lions as well. So I look at that Wallabies team. They're talented. It is a talented side. We know that about Australia. Can they do it? Can they rise to the challenge of beating the Springboks in South Africa? One way of looking at this is how many of those Wallabies players would get into the Springboks team. Bearing in mind that the Springboks are back-to-back world champions, they have ridiculous strength in depth like no other nation in the world, possibly France. So it's always going to be a challenge, and there's not too many. It is a big challenge. Like I look at it, and I think Will Skelton would be in the conversation, but we all know how stacked South Africa are in the 2nd row. I think Joseph Akwoso Sualihi would absolutely be in the conversation because of the kind of generational athlete he is. Plenty of Springbok fans would still probably say they want Mr. Reliable Jesse Creel at 13, which I understand, but as an athlete, Sualihi would be there, and I think Tom Wright would be in that conversation as well because he's one of the best fullbacks in the world. But I don't think there's too many players. That is the scale of the task here for Australia. And it's one of those games, to me, it's a really talented team, going to be up against it. Yes, they can do it, but you kind of need one of those games where you almost feel like everything goes your way and you win all those little duels and you get the bounce of the ball and everyone's absolutely on it. And I think a good example of that recently for this Australia team, and I'm sorry to keep referencing back to it, but I was in Australia for the Lions tour, so it's at the forefront of my mind and it's the most recent that we've seen these guys, was the 2nd test at the MCG. 50 minutes of that game, pretty much. The Lions scored a couple of tries at the end of the 1st half, which changed momentum, but pretty much in that 50 minutes, Australia were just bossing it. They were bossing the carry, they were bossing the breakdown, they were able to give a platform to their backline who were finding holes and causing problems for the defence. You need that sort of performance. Is it going to come? Well, there are plenty of very, very good teams that are going to go to South Africa this year and last year and in the years to come, and they won't come away with a victory. I'm so excited to see how this Australia team gets on. And I suppose actually to finish off, and this is something I'll speak about more in the full preview I do, but what impact does the Lions tour have on Australia? The fact that they have had a 3-test series against quality opposition, a series which they weren't great in the 1st test, but they built into that series by the end of it. How much does that benefit them coming into this, that they are more battle-hardened? That is one area that I think if you were looking at reasons why, do you know what? You're trying to find reasons that Australia are going to do it. For me, that would be one of them that I would look at. I'll maybe speak about that more tomorrow. Give me your views in the comments. Like the video as well, subscribe to the channel, and it's full steam ahead. Rugby Championship is here, plenty more content coming your way, so don't miss a thing. I'll see you in the next one.